Welcome to Towers, a Metazoo podcast. My name is Esther, and today we're talking about the state of the towers as they currently stand. I want to get you up to date on Dark Tower, I want to talk about Flame Tower a little bit, and then some things to look forward to in the podcast. So, first of all, Dark Tower. It's in 3 weeks. There have been format changes. This is the least amount of time you have had to prepare with the most amount of changes. So if you're not already working on your spellbook, put this podcast down and go do that. There are many remarkable things about this tower. It is likely the last tower of the year. We have Caster Cup in October, and I don't think we're going to have a November or a December tower. So this is closing out the 2023 tower circuit. It is also the most remote tower we've ever been to. West Virginia, Point Pleasant, home of the Mothman, making it also the most significant cryptid location that we've had a tower at. But beyond that are the format details. This week, they released the format details, and there have been a lot of changes. For the very first time, there are no Terra bonuses. There are still active Terra at the tower, but they are all giving you a ×1 bonus, which is the standard bonus, instead of ×3, which really changes how the entire thing works. For 2, they have 9 pseudo-environments active. At Water and Earth Tower, we had no pseudo-environments active, and at Flame for the first time, we had a few pseudo-environments active. But at Dark Tower, we have so many special elements on pages that are going to be activated by the pseudo effects, the fourth wall effects that are just automatically in play at this tower. And we also have 2 unique rules for just specific pages. Mothman comes standing up. That's important. It doesn't have fleet. It just comes in standing. So something like first anniversary celebrations is not going to stop that. And Black Mass is going to bookmark you 4 pages no matter what you do with the page. That is a 2-drop. In Constructed, you play it, you sacrifice a bunch of beasties, and depending on how many beasties you sacrifice, you get different effects, such as boosting the LP of your existing beasties, being able to fetch beasties out of limbo, or if you sacrifice 7, you get to draw a bunch of cards. Well, now you just get to draw a bunch of cards. We've never dealt with this before, and I think adding a bunch of card draw to the format is going to help make up for the ×1 Terra bonuses so they're not being as much damage. Now, I'm not going to go through all the details right now because my buddy Alexander over at 2 Per Spellbook has already done that thoroughly. We're doing an informal team up on this. We did a lot of work together during Earth Tower. He was the main person I play tested with, so I really trust his perspective. He's putting out great work, so I want you to go support that blog. We'll focus on what it is to be a Metazoo player, a caster with this podcast, but for the nitty-gritty details on the individual pages and whatnot, you want to go check out 2 Per Spellbook. This is going to be a different game. If you haven't done a lot of Constructed, expect this to go a little slower than you're used to at Towers. And if you haven't done mirror matches, let me break it down for you. In a mirror match, especially in a tower format, you're probably going to have a lot of the same game pieces that your opponent does, which means when you play something, they'll have something of equal power to counter it or vice versa. This means that unless you're very careful, games can stall a bit, which you can use to your advantage depending on what pages you play. You know, you might run a spellbook that wants the game to go on a little longer so you can get all the aura you need out. But this is not Flame Tower where most of our matches were wrapped up by the 35-minute mark. And to lean into that a bit, the next episode I'm planning on making for Towers, which talks about both Flame and Earth Tower, but in the interest of preparing for Dark Tower, is about mentality, endurance, the non-physical elements that you need to bring to a tower in order to succeed. I'm really excited for it. The card pool is really fun. It's going to be pretty different. The items they have going with it, from the promos to the jerseys, look really sweet, and I just have wanted to go to Point Pleasant since I was about 10. And this will be a great opportunity. Now talking about Flame Tower. Late last month, we had the Flame Tower in Texas. It was the largest tower so far with 170 people. It was my first tower participating with a team, and I did really well. I got 5th place overall. Not only did I make it to day 2, but I made it to the top 8. And when I lost, it was to one of my teammates, which was just such a delightful match to have. If you remember me talking about the last tower, how I got knocked out round 1, I wanted to make it back into the top 32, so hopefully variance wouldn't hit me on day 2, and it didn't. I don't know if that means the things I've learned here and the advice that I give on towers is good enough to get you to top 32, but so far it's working for me. I want to do episodes covering it. I want to talk about what it's like being on a team and what difference that makes. If you remember the first episode of this podcast, I talk about my loss to Herman, followed up by my loss to Logan at the water tower. Well, that's the team I joined. It's called the Legion of Doom. They approached me a couple rounds into the Earth Tower about potentially joining the team. We had talks, and shortly after that, I did join the team. At Flame Tower, we had 4 people in the top 32 of our 6-person team. So we had Chris from Dueling Bros, he got 14th place. We had my fellow SoCal caster, Ricky, got 4th place. And then Philip, who is a legend, got 3rd place. They've really helped me take my game to the next level. I was already talking about the limitations I was running into going into Earth Tower as a solo player, and this exceeded my expectations. So I'd like to make an episode of that. But let's talk about the podcast in general. Now that I am way more experienced and familiar with this game, and I have some notable wins under my belt, I want to change things up a little bit, because it's no longer really appropriate for me to be like, oh, beginner, intermediate podcast as we try to figure out what it takes to get into top 32. And the lessons I'm learning each time are different, and some of them are definitely in that more advanced category. So I want to do a couple more that will line up with the types of episodes I've done so far. I mentioned the one on mentality. I'd like to do a small episode on the actual materials you play with, the die and damage counters and all of that. But after that, I kind of want to do a season 2. I want to do Towers season 2, where I start doing retrospectives. I've been so busy prepping for these tournaments and then doing makeup work for my normal jobs that I haven't had as much time to do like the fun sound design and the narrative stuff for this podcast. And so I want to take more of a bird's eye view for season 2. Ideally, those episodes will be a little more detailed. They will be going from tower to tower and talking about the general experience, the sequencing, the lessons learned, to give you more of a top-down example that you can take to your own tournaments. That's what I'm thinking. By the time I get that really underway, it's likely that we'll be headed to Dark Tower anyways, so it'll give me something to work on throughout the rest of the year. And I'm not really going to be talking about Caster Cup on this podcast. It's the Towers podcast, and so it'll also give you something that you can enjoy kind of leading up to Caster Cup and after Caster Cup. I'd love to hear your ideas. If there's anything you want me to talk about specifically, just DM me on Instagram at Towers Podcast. I'm active on there. And yeah, I'm excited about it. It feels like the right choice. If you're going to be at Long Beach Collecticon, I am going to be there the whole weekend, so come say hi. There's a tournament happening there that I'm going to be checking out. I will not be participating. I already got a first place medal at a big SoCal tournament we did, and I want to give other people a chance to fight for those medals. And my focus is really on Dark Tower right now, so I'd rather just kind of enjoy as a spectator as opposed to participating myself. Best of luck to everyone who's participating. I can't wait to watch you all play. But I'm going to be hanging out. Last year at Long Beach, they had a tournament on Saturday, and then on Sunday, I went to the con. They had so many lines for different promos and stuff that I didn't really check out the rest of the con, so I'm looking forward to doing that this weekend. And once again, check out 2perspellbook.com. You'll see Alexander Cairns on any of the Facebook groups or Discord groups, but those are going to be really key resources. From here on out, I don't want to be redundant, and so I'm going to be referring you over to him to get the hard details on pages, on formats, that sort of thing. I want to get you prepared in other ways, more on like a player focus. But that's it for now. Be looking out for more episodes in the coming weeks. Make sure you have your tickets to get to the Dark Tower. Make sure you know where you're sleeping. I cannot wait to play people there. It's going to be really neat as kind of a wrap up to this entire year of traveling and exploring different aura types. Until next time. Towers, a Metazoo podcast, was created by me, Ester Ellis. The cover art was made by Chandler Candela. Music by the Heatley Bros. More details in the description. Want to say hello? Follow the show on Instagram at Towers Podcast. Send me an email at towersgamepodcast@gmail.com and say hi in Metazoo's Discord servers. Many of the figures in Metazoo originate in indigenous lore, and I think it's important for me to acknowledge that I make this podcast on the traditional lands and home of the Tongva Nation. This game presents us with a rich opportunity to get in touch with the living cultures that surround us, and I hope you can take a moment to reflect on the history of the land you stand on, and the figures and the cards you play.